It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. As we move into a Monday, as if movie tickets weren't high enough. That's the problem. It's too cheap to go to the movies.
Yeah,
Gary,
but Trump did say he's not going to run for a third term.
Yeah, well.
He cleared that up over the weekend.
Well, he won't have to. He's going to sign an executive order that makes presidential terms 8 years instead of 4.
Okay.
Yes.
The movie thing we'll get to in a second, but the one I did like was Alcatraz. I mean,
Yeah.
I am completely against that because we need to keep Vicky in the National Park Service employed.
That's right. Yeah.
We're talking about, well, the first half of the movie, one of our favorite movies, So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Alcatraz scene with
Right.
Vicky as played by Phil Hartman.
Yeah. It was so great. And of course, I was thinking of the movie The Rock.
Never saw that.
With Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery. Welcome to The Rock. It was actually a pretty good action movie, as action movies go.
Well, it's interesting because Trump said, I'm doing it for imagery.
Yeah, right.
He didn't say he's doing it because you know how many Supermaxes have closed down?
Right, yeah.
None of them. There's
Right.
plenty of prison space. I'm doing it for imagery. Now, here's the question. Now, we know that Elon Musk really is now gone, but would Elon Musk and DOGE be for the refurbishing and the building of a new Alcatraz?
Yeah, the rebuilding of an Alcatraz.
Would they view that as the most efficient use of tax dollars? And that's why I think Trump said, "Oh, it's just imagery. I want to do the imagery. I want it to be shown that we're tough."
Yeah.
Well, I thought the Supermaxes were pretty intimidating.
I've always thought they were.
I've been in. I want to make this clear as a visitor. I have been in federal prisons.
Yeah.
I've been in their medium security prison.
Yeah.
Which is more like a maximum state security prison because above that would be the Supermaxes, but so many of those have closed.
I actually had a conversation with a guy in prison, but it got weird because he started talking about liver and fava beans. I had to get out. She put the lotion in the basket. It's when you think Supermax, you think Hollywood movie. You would think that they're all dressed up, just like what's his name on Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter. As they go from lunch back to their cells, they have to put their mask back on, and it really, I mean, I don't. I don't know what imagery it would be unless, here's my question. Are they going to do tourism? Right? Are you going to do, we can't land on the island. That would be too dangerous. We'll just we're going to go around the island. And then some of the most dangerous people in the world might wave at you. I don't know where you get the imagery thing.
Yeah, they've redone. There's only one Supermax prison now left in the United States, run by the federal government, and that's the one in Florence, Colorado.
Right.
That has a lot of the worst people in, but a lot of them have been. All the rest have been closed or downgraded.
Yeah.
Not to Supermax prisons. A lot of people don't know that. And I look at that and I go, well, that's sending a message. I mean, if you're talking about the most dangerous people, that's where they were supposed to go. But it'll be interesting to see because you've got a ton of stuff to go through in order to get that done. I don't believe he can do that through executive order.
No,
And the
no, I don't think so
reason
either.
would be it's a national historical site. It's in the registry as a national historical site, and it's in a different department.
Right.
It's the National Park Service. Now he's cutting $1 billion from the National Park Service in the budget. Whether that will include Alcatraz, or I don't know. Does Alcatraz make a profit from the tourism?
Good question. I don't know. Look, we could cover two birds with one weekend stone and just turn Alcatraz into a foreign movie theater. It's going to cost you $200 to go see it, but hey, you get a tour of Alcatraz too. Yeah, it's not going to, it's likely not going to happen.
Okay, here it is. Alcatraz receives about 1.6 million visitors annually and generates about $60 million in annual revenue for park partners. Let me just look at it here. There's another one that says it's 30. I don't know if that's the profit that they make, though, because 60 million may be what they bring in. Yeah, okay. Alcatraz receives about 1.6 million visitors annually and generates about $60 million in annual revenue for park partners. And they said the tour company earns an estimated $30 million annually from ticket sales, which each ticket costing about $30. So apparently, there's a tour company that actually runs it for the National Park Service. Alcatraz's popularity contributes significantly to the local economy, supporting jobs, labor income, and overall economic output in the surrounding area. Well, okay, it's entertainment dollars, but a lot of those are tourist entertainment dollars. That's money coming in from the outside. While Alcatraz is a profitable tourist attraction, it's important to note that the island's infrastructure, including the wharf, requires ongoing maintenance and restoration, and there have been instances where the tour company has experienced financial losses, such as during budget impasses, as discussed in one of the search results here as I'm looking at it. So we'll find out in the next couple of days. Somebody will do research on it to find out exactly what it makes. But when I said, well, first thing when he said bring back Alcatraz, I said, well, DOGE won't approve that.
You're right.
That's the first thing I thought of. DOGE isn't going to approve that. I go, let me dig deeper. Why does he want to do it? For imagery. He wants the imagery that we're tougher.
Yeah,
well, the Supermaxes you had, and we said, nope, sorry. Those prisons are whatever, too brutal, too much against human rights. So except for one, they've all been downgraded or closed.
Right.
Across the country, the Supermaxes. So, we'll see where that goes. On the movie front, it's interesting because we have a huge movie surplus in the United States. It's over $15 billion. We have a movie surplus, what we export. And as you know, I mean, for example, remember you and I talked about, what was it, Red Dawn 2? And one of the reasons that it was the Koreans, the North Koreans, coming in Red Dawn 2 to attack Michigan.
Right.
The reason they changed, it was supposed to be the Chinese.
Right.
But they wanted to sell the movie over in China.
Right.
And they couldn't sell it over in China. They said, we got a huge audience that will watch Red Dawn, so it can't be the Chinese. Make it the Koreans.
That's happened with a number of movies where the bad guy or a central character that's not going to look good was someone from China, and they had to change it. Had to go back, and there was a Adam Sandler movie it wasn't one of his big movies, but he talked about how they had to change the movie because they wanted the movie to be able to be shown in China, and it wasn't going to be shown in China if they didn't fix it. And that's happened a number of times. And are they going to put is China going to put a tariff on NBA? right? It's
Wow.
remember the whole
Wow.
NBA thing with
Well,
China?
wait a minute. The NFL.
Uh-huh.
Why is the NFL playing games in other countries
Right.
and making profits over there?
Exactly. Yeah.
And instead of having the super high prices for the American audience.
Right. Well, look,
that none of us can afford.
it's, is it odd that that China funds so many movies? Yeah. There's you mentioned one, the Midway, and that one, along with there was one. What was it about? It was about this massive shark, and it was Jason Statham was in the movie, and I think they did a sequel to it, and it was funded by China. And that when that got out, it was like, oh, there's some kind of propaganda here, or it's just a giant shark movie. I don't know. Could be propaganda that I'm not seeing. Or it could be Megalodon. Well, and here's another thing. Speaking of which, what happens, to all of the movies that are made in Vancouver, in Vancouver, British Columbia. They shoot a lot of movies there.
Well, here's my question. What's the definition of an American-made movie?
Right. Hugh Grant's in the movie, but it's made in the States. Is that 100% American-made movie?
Well, I mean, that's a loser to begin with if it's Hugh Grant. I'm not going. No, but you mentioned Midway, because I went and saw, I think Midway was the last movie I've seen in a movie theater, and that was 2019 when it came out.
Well, Hugh Grant was in the last movie I saw in a movie theater. That tells you how long ago it was.
Well, I know, but the wife made you go.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, best sleep I've ever had.
But the Midway, for example, I went and saw it in the movie theater, and my father, who was a private pilot, but he did the acrobatics. I mean, way back in the 50s, he was doing the loop-de-loops in a propeller plane and doing all that stuff. So I said my father would love to see this, because one of the things I heard about that movie was, even though they used AI, the dive bomber parts of it were the most realistic they've said you'll see. You'll actually see what a dive bomber went through. And you did walk out of that movie going, holy crap. How did they do that? How does any human being have the guts to do, what they did? And they wanted to make it realistic. Now, Roland Emmerich did it, Independence Day and all that. Well, then my father and I saw it, and I don't know if I saw an article, whatever, but I did research on it, and I found out, it's an American-made production, but all the financing for Midway.
Right.
About the Battle of Midway.
Right.
And, of course, when it came out, being a World War II buff, George Costanza, I always wish I could have been a buff. What's a buff?
Yeah.
But just, I said, got to see this movie. Never thinking that a movie like this, that to me didn't seem to have any type of propaganda at all from the Chinese, because it was an American-made production. It's the Chinese investors thought they could make money on it. And I think it cost $100 million, and I think they made roughly like $140 million on it. So, profit margin, you made okay. You made what, 30%, something like that, profit on the movie. But that's the one, Woody Harrelson. That movie came out the same time that I think the second one did, the zombie one.
Yeah.
I remember thinking,
Zombieland.
Yeah, what do I like better? Him as, what did he call himself in what's it, Toledo, or I forgot what he called himself, something I forgot.
In Zombieland?
In Zombieland, he had a nickname, and I went, interesting. He's a pretty good actor. When you see him as Admiral Nimitz in Midway compared to Zombieland, which I loved his character there. But I had no idea. Until after I'd seen the movie, my father saw the movie, that Midway, one of the most accurate, I think, reproductions of what a dive bomb pilot went through in World War II, was completely financed by Chinese investors.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't find American movie investors did not think that the movie would go over with the public in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So is that an American-made movie or is that a foreign-made movie?
Yeah, right.
And so you talked about doing production in Canada, but if you do production in Canada, but it's an American-made movie where the American movie company makes all the profits,
Right.
is that an American-made movie?
Right. If they go do one shoot in Mexico,
yeah,
that happens all the time where it's like, okay, we need some exterior shots in wherever. Vancouver's one that comes up, and it quite often they'll use it to mimic, Seattle or somewhere on the Northwest coast, right? And that, in fact, there was a TV show on AMC years ago that filmed or that recorded in Vancouver, but it took place in the Seattle area, and that happens all the time. But it's just part of it. If one scene or two scenes, or let's say the main scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
The big crescendo of the movie takes place, in another country. Is that an American-made movie?
866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. When it comes to truck maintenance, sometimes it's the little things that can cause the most trouble, like cabin air filters. When properly serviced, cabin air filters provide a barrier between pollutants and harmful particles outside and your HVAC system. If you don't pay attention to them, however, this small part can turn into big trouble in no time. Breathe easy when you know which warning signs could indicate that your cabin air filters are clogged. A dirty, musty smell throughout the entire cab may indicate your cabin air filters are oversaturated and need to be replaced.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here, as always. Well, that's the problem with movies, because I asked you, I said, can you tell me one, just off the top of your head, one foreign-made movie that was financed by foreign entities, produced and directed by foreign entities, that was a massive hit in the United States? And first thing you just said, I don't know, maybe Harry Potter?
Because it was filmed overseas. Right. Everything was filmed overseas.
Right. Everything was filmed overseas. Mm-hmm. Warner Brothers did that.
Right.
So is that a foreign-made movie?
Well, and if because all these major movie companies are international. So is it where they're based? Is it where they're filmed? Is it who writes it? Is it who directs it? Because if you say made, well, they're making it in England, in the UK. Lord of the Rings, same thing. So American movie companies, that's one thing. Where are they making it?
Now, does it apply to Hallmark movies? I'm laughing because so many Hallmark movies are made in Canada.
Yeah.
But why did they go to Canada? Why did movie making, if they're doing production and shooting outside of the United States, why are they doing it?
Because it's cheaper to make cheesy movies in Canada.
Union rules.
Mm-hmm. Well, anytime they go to they do the same with Texas, right? I mean, they do the same with going to any other location. They're saving on cost one way or the other. They're getting out of California away from unions.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. You made a great point.
Yeah.
Hollywood is more communistic than China.
Well, that's the thing, is that when you think about how this all works, it's like, well, let's force these movie companies. All the major studios are based in the U.S. They all have international arms. They have to, in order to do business over there, to film, to make movies, to do whatever. But they're all the major studios really are here. And what you don't want, the idea is what you don't want is you don't want China financing movies, because the idea is that they would put in propaganda. Well, if you're worried about propaganda, Hollywood's more communist than China.
When it comes to the impact of movies that the American public has seen from them, rather than movies that were produced, directed, and financed in China. Can you tell me one movie that was produced, directed, and financed by China?
Right.
Because Midway was not. Midway was produced, and again, directed by Roland Emmerich from Independence Day, whatever. That was that was completely and totally financed by China, but it was an American-made production with the script made in America. And if you see the movie, you don't see really, I don't think, any China references at all in the movie. Those were investors doing it. So you look here, I'm looking at Wall Street Journal did an article on it saying films made by American studios are often shot in United Kingdom and Canada, including this year's highest-grossing film, a Minecraft movie, which I haven't seen, of course. But that was, again, financed by two companies, Warner Brothers, and I think it's Landline Entertainment, both American companies. So if American companies finance it but film it, for example, Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible, as we know, so much of it filmed in foreign countries.
Yeah, right.
But all American financed, and most people would say, there really isn't a lot of foreign propaganda in those movies.
Right. Well, again, if it's about propaganda, that train left the station long ago in Hollywood. It's their propaganda is worse than any foreign entity. The left in Hollywood and the message, machine that they want to put out instead of putting out entertainment is. And here's the thing: where is the influence? Right. We're turning more and more away from Hollywood.
Yeah, we are.
In fact, John Mulaney, the comedian, was on Conan's podcast, Conan O'Brien's podcast. And Conan, I had to be reminded of this, Conan hosted the Oscars, and they were talking about it afterward. And he goes, "You did such a good job up there, hosting a show about movies none of us have seen." And they were laughing hard. And the fact is that it's true, because, ultimately, what is that influence? And also, where is the propaganda coming from? Well, my gosh, if you're going to put a tariff, put it on Hollywood.
Well, for example, Reacher is an extremely popular, I think it's probably the most popular original programming being done by Prime, right?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, Reacher, filmed in Ontario.
Yeah.
Toronto and Hamilton. It goes, Toronto often is served as a stand-in for cities like New York and Atlanta, but totally filmed in Canada. But what makes it, if an American company is filming there and makes huge profits, that benefits the American economy. So look, I'll tell you this weekend with the Pope thing, with Alcatraz and this, Trump is just trolling.
Yeah, I think so.
Because these aren't big issues. I chuckled over each and every one, because the first, like I said, when I heard rebuild Alcatraz, do you think DOGE would agree with that?
Right.
I don't know if DOGE would view that as the best way to spend money. And I said, well, what is the reason? I mean, what is the reason, the number one reason? And he said imagery.
Mm-hmm.
He wants the imagery that we're tough, and Alcatraz has tough imagery.
Right.
You can have tough imagery in other ways by, like, putting people in jail that actually commit crimes.
Mm-hmm. Let's turn one of the either Disneyland or Disney World into a prison.
Or New York
you want
City.
to have a showcase.
Let's just New York, do New York City.
Right. Then Snake Plissken can go in and rescue.
New York City, Los Angeles, make them huge prisons.
Right.
But seriously, I mean, I'm like, he's just trolling this weekend. The Pope stuff was hilarious.
Yeah.
Because it was, it was social media especially. Trump talking about it's sacrilegious, him being. I said, no, it's not. There's nothing wrong with the American commandments.
Right. Exactly.
What's wrong with the American commandments?
Right.
That would be. Like,
thou shalt not buy foreign products.
Thou shalt not buy the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not buy foreign products.
It really is,
and that will replace "Thou shalt not commit." I'm telling you, it was. But when it started with the Pope thing and then it just continued, I just went, he's just trolling this weekend. I expected him to say something else when he did and we'll have that audio coming up where he said, nah, for some reason, it's Constitution or other reasons. It goes Constitution or, no, there's only one reason. The Constitution is why you can't run for president. Yeah. Like you said, among other reasons. There aren't among other reasons.
Right.
It's the Constitution that keeps you running for a third term.
Yeah.
And he just said, a lot of people, are for it, but no, I expect to have a great 4 years. So I'm like, he put that to rest. I'm like, okay, now he's trolling in a ton of different areas, and I think he's doing it because he knows this is a tactic, and it's worked successfully for him, where they'll go crazy now. Mm-hmm. He can't be Pope. Why does he say he can be Pope? He can't be Pope.
Yeah, right.
And then, the movie making and Hollywood, will comment somehow on it. No matter what, since Trump took that opinion, Hollywood has to take the opposite opinion.
Right. Well, and, by Hollywood standards, they're looking at it. Think about this. They think China's more conservative than they are. Right?
Hollywood considers China a red state.
Well, exactly.
Literally red.
Well, because think about this. All right. They clearly don't care about the environment, right? Strong on military. I mean, you can build the list of reasons. Hollywood is more communist than China. If you're worried about propaganda, Hollywood, tariff Hollywood. Anything coming out of Hollywood
gets tariff. Because can you tell me movies, because it's who writes the movie. It's not where they're filmed, because he's making the case that the propaganda is the biggest reason. Well, you think Hollywood's going to have less propaganda if they don't film Mission Impossible in Dubai?
Right.
Does the propaganda come if he's making the case? Because Hollywood's completely confused. They have no idea what he's talking about. Because they're like, well, what movie is produced, directed by foreign entities and financed by foreign entities that have been a huge propaganda push for the United States that Americans actually went out and watched? I can't name one.
Yeah.
Because it really doesn't. You see foreign films, there's a place for them to get Oscars, but they don't do much business in the United States at all. They're not competition for American-made movies from the studios in Hollywood that may be international companies, but they're still based in Hollywood. The profits come back to the United States.
Right.
You can't make the case that it's because, they're losing business. They're losing business because the American public doesn't like what Hollywood is putting out, and it's got nothing to do with where they shoot. It has to do with the screenplay, what they're actually writing.
Right. Well,
so, like I said, it was just just trolling.
Is it truly an American-made film, even if they film every bit of it here in the States with equipment that was imported from China and Japan?
Yes.
Right. I mean, again, it's just one of those things where you're clearly trolling, throwing things out there to, that don't really mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
And, which is fine. We'll have some fun with it.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, that's all we're doing. But
yeah, it's
but the Pope thing, the orange smoke coming out was just great.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
I just like how people were getting upset. I love how the left, who doesn't believe in so many of the left, who does well. I don't believe in God, but what's going on with Trump and the Catholic Church and him saying he could be Pope is just ridiculous and implying that he could be Pope.
Well, they were booing God at their convention. When was that? Was that 2008?
Wow.
Was it 2008? Booing God and now screaming, "How dare you?" about the Pope thing. It's like, shut up.
It was hilarious.
Yeah.
It was funny. I mean, I burst out laughing. And I saw it and went, oh, the left's going to go crazy. They did for a couple of days, and I think they're wondering, should we be going down? Is he trying to set us up? Is he trolling us now? And it's like, well, we don't care whether he's trolling us. We still have to respond.
Right. Well, they can't not respond, right?
Yes.
I'm sure at some point, AOC and Bernie are going to get on their private jet and go somewhere and protest it. They're going to have to get involved. But I really think a lot of this is trolling, and I do believe a lot of this too. When we go back to other bigger issues, it is very clear. There's been some analysis on, and I was reading some of it over the weekend, but basically saying that he's doing this. He's toying with the courts. I think was that, I can't remember if that was National Review or Wall Street Journal. Well, toying with the courts and bringing this to the surface to present a court challenge are two very different things. If we're talking about deporting criminals, if we're talking about deporting people here who have deportation orders in place by the courts, I think it was National Review, but it doesn't matter. The thought is wrong. This should be brought to the courts. The highest court should be ruling on whether or not he has the authority to do these things. And you and I have talked about.
I do think he's testing the courts to see what the limits of executive power is in this Supreme Court.
And as he should.
Yeah.
But the way they write toying with the courts, well, I don't consider that to be a game.
Okay.
I think that is testing the courts, which is a very serious, that word was misused, toying. I think he's toying with Hollywood.
Well, no, because toying might give you the impression that it's not serious.
Yeah, that he's not taking it seriously.
Right.
He doesn't take the system seriously. I think it's actually quite the opposite. I think he's bringing those challenges for a reason.
Well, I think one of the reasons is because he's been gone after by activist judges.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen it.
Right.
And I think he wants to bring out, as he should, the fact that there's rot in the judicial system.
Yeah.
That just because they're judges does not mean, as we found out, they're not above the law.
Right.
We saw the extent of the judge, for example, in Wisconsin and the one in New Mexico. People are like, well, what? You can't do that. You're a judge. Didn't matter. And I think Trump wants to point that out. To me, that isn't toying. It's saying, I want to get this up to a Supreme Court where I know there are constructionists that will look at the Constitution and say, this is the power of the executive branch, this is the power of the judicial branch, and I think he wants that precedent set. Because I think he believes, and I think he's right, that the majority of the precedent will go his way.
Yeah, right.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. The problem is, will this make some Republicans on the movie say, look, this is not an emergency. America has a huge trade surplus when it comes to movies. If Hollywood is dying, it's because of the product that they're putting out and people's changing behaviors. We don't go to
Right.
the movies as much
Right.
as we used to.
Right.
You don't have to. But I'm really interested in seeing if the Commerce Department actually sets up how tariffs will be put in. Will you face 100% tariff if 5% of your movie is filmed because the story and the screenplay is in a foreign country, if
Right.
it's in Paris?
Right.
How do you do that? It must be 50% content or more that was filmed in the United States. Is it about the financing? If a movie is financed completely by the Chinese but shot in America, is that a foreign-made film?
Right. What
No-
about
no
what about
one-
the actors in the movie? What about the writers? The number of writers in the movie,
Yep.
and are they citizens of the U.S. or not, or how does it work?
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Trump made it clear yesterday he will not be running in 2028 when he was on Meet the Press.
The Trump Organization is selling hats that say Trump 2028.
Yeah.
Are you seriously considering a third term, Mr.
No, I
President,
think-
even though it's prohibited by the Constitution? Or is this about staying politically viable?
I will say this. So many people want me to do it. I have never had requests so strong as that. But it's something that, to the best of my knowledge, you're not allowed to do. I don't know if that's constitutional that they're not allowing you to do it or anything else, but there are many people selling the 2028 hat. But this is not something I'm looking to do. I'm looking to have 4 great years.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, can we put that to bed now? Thanks. I just
And now the hats need to say Junior on them.
Barron.
Yeah, right.
He might not be old enough.
Not
by
old enough
2028.
just yet. We'll wait just a few years with Barron. A lot of people have speculated with J.D. Vance, it would be J.D. Vance, Donald Trump Jr. on the ticket. That's pure speculation. I haven't heard anybody. I don't know if Donald Trump Jr. has been asked that directly, and I missed it, but I didn't see it where he was asked and commented on that. But, we'll see. We got to get to 28 first. We got to get to 26 first. Let's get through the midterms.
It's going to be interesting this week to see what the media focuses on, though. And I know the Hollywood thing. I'm amazed. I have to check now. I got to go on X and really do a search here in the next break.
Yeah,
just to see if Hollywood yet is on the tariffs. Because if Trump wants it, then they're going to want the opposite.
Yeah,
doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah,
and
right.
it would be interesting. I am interested in seeing. Because I've seen this. This is where Trump supporters are confused. Why would he want to prop up Hollywood?
Yeah, it's the top story at Variety.com. I've never typed in Variety.com on a computer. This is the first time in my life. I've seen stories from Variety, hit the news cycle, right? But I've never actually proactively intentionally gone to the website and typed it in with the URL. Trump threatens to impose film tariffs. So that's the top story. Yeah.
Has Meathead spoken up yet? I'm waiting for a Meathead post.
Yeah, I don't know. Haven't heard from him. Look, the thing is that even without the tariffs, movies are going to continue to be enormously expensive for moviegoers. But on the propaganda front, if that's what you're worried about, propaganda and influence, hold on a second. Hollywood is more communist than China, than North Korea. What is it that you're actually worried about?
I'm trying to find even a better example than North Korea, and we can't find one.
There's really not one. You know, if you want to, well, okay. And then the ongoing conversation about TikTok. TikTok is still owned by China.
Yeah.
And nothing has been done about that. They keep kicking that can down the road. They say they want to tackle it during the tariff discussions, but it's still owned by China. I mean, if your greatest concern seriously is influenced by China, forget about it. In fact, forget about TikTok. They have the means to, in fact, they are operating inside the United States. They are totally gauging what public sentiment is all the time. And there's no doubt in my mind that's going to continue. It doesn't matter what you do with tariffs on movies. It doesn't matter what, honestly, it doesn't matter what you do with trade. They're still going to do the same thing. It doesn't matter what you do with TikTok. I said that back when they had delayed the
twice now, right?
Shutting down of TikTok. Yeah, it's happened a couple of times
Twice
now.
since he's been president.
Right. So it's that's not, you know, it's that, again, that train already left the station and did years ago in terms of Chinese influence or infiltrating our society in potentially dangerous ways. That's just something that is reality in the world that we're in technology. The NVIDIA CEO was talking about AI in China, and I was wondering about this too, because the H20 chip is the one where the U.S. government recently came in and said, okay, you're going to have to basically, for NVIDIA, you're going to have to get a permit, go through the application process for the H20 chip that you send over to China. It's an AI chip. And NVIDIA was, the CEO was saying at the end of last week, don't count China out when it comes to AI. I've had the question about intellectual property rights and AI, you know, with China and how they could, you know, do what they've been doing for a long time in other regards with other technologies. But the CEO of NVIDIA made the great point. He said, Huawei, which is a Chinese company, he said, they're formidable. We don't need to discount them as not a major player. And my greater concern is the development of that stealing of, again, intellectual property and then using that and it becoming a massive national defense threat for the U.S. There's a great deal of potential. If you want to go through the Hollywood movies where there's, again, propaganda, you know, that's put in the movies, you know, again, you're going to have to deal with the communists left here in the States. But I understand why that's a hot point for a lot of people. Is it a major movie and a major movie? Is it a major move? Is it a major problem with people on a day-to-day basis? No, and I don't think it's the greatest threat from China. I think there are many other greater threats, and I assume the Trump administration is working on those.
But Trump didn't make the argument that I thought would work better for him. Why are American companies making movies and employing people outside the United States? He didn't say that.
Right.
He said because of he's implying that there's competition for Hollywood from foreign produced, directed, and financed films. Give me one example. There's I don't know of one example that you had a foreign film that was produced, directed, and financed by foreign entities. So what he's saying is, if you don't film here, well, that's going after Hollywood. What you're saying is, if you don't want, what you're actually doing is going after Hollywood. You're not going after the foreign filmmakers. You're going after Hollywood. Because what you're saying is you're producing these films. If you produce a film in Canada, well, those workers who get paid by, by your company are foreign workers. They're not Americans. I'm going to put a tariff on that. But he says the reason is propaganda. Well, the propaganda aim doesn't change because you film part of your film in Vancouver and not the United States as an American film company. The propaganda comes from the screenwriters and the producers, the directors, however they wish, for the so none of it, again, it doesn't make any sense. It's confusing. You're like, well, what? You're saying propaganda, and you're saying that the propaganda comes from foreign sources. Give me an example.
Well, that's it. Use, again, if you want to say, well, the number one movie right now in the country wasn't made here. My gosh, you can go back to how many movies. If you're talking about where they're produced, then take your pick. Because my gosh, Lord of the Rings trilogy, New Zealand. The Harry Potter films, UK.
Mission Impossible. All over the world. But all American companies and all American investment companies are the ones that are financing those. So the profits go to Americans. So is he saying that every single film must have every single part made in the United States? And this is the thing, though, this is brought up. He now wants to tariff services. A movie is a service. America has a huge trade surplus in services and a huge trade surplus in movie making. So why are we doing it? It comes back again, he says, to the propaganda. How do these tariffs change propaganda?
Well, they won't change the Hollywood propaganda.
No. Well, he's implying that these are foreign-made movies with foreign financing that are throwing anti-American plots against the United States. Give me one example. I don't know of one. And then this tariff.
Yeah, Hollywood's busy doing that.
Well, exactly. Hollywood does it every single day.
Exactly.
So this is again where the confusion comes in. And as we've said, when you're talking tariffs, be precise, be honest. But there's no precision here at all. And the Commerce Secretary said, I'm on it. On what?
Right.
It's like it doesn't matter. But it'll be interesting to see. I can't wait to see the response from some of the Hollywood people later on today. That'll be funny.
Yeah, it's I don't think it's going very far because we don't care about Hollywood. Let's say the tariffs happened. All right, that's one more reason for us on the long list of reasons to keep turning away from Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's if you told me movie theater prices would double, that would have zero impact on my life.
I know, you're right. It was zero impact on my life.
Zero impact on my life. And then you say movie rentals would double. Okay, twice a year, that might. Give me one reason. Look, I'm not renting it because I'm sleepy. You raise the price. If you double the price of a rental, hi, YouTube. How you doing?
Well, if the price of a rental and almost everything is what, $3.90, $5.99?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Sometimes they're like, the movies. I never rent a movie that just got out of the box office. It's like $12 or something like that.
Oh, some of the rentals are $24.99 that are still in theaters.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't ever even look at that.
I invite people. I invite 20 people over to my house, and each pay $1.50.
Well, I mean, the movies I rent are like $4.99, $5.99.
Mm-hmm. I'm not even. I get Netflix for free.
Yeah, I have so
and
many, yeah.
The true crime stuff, about 2 or 3 times a year, I kind of get into a habit of finding a documentary, a true crime documentary. Those are interesting. If Netflix went away tomorrow, zero impact on my life.
I have so many streaming channels, and I'm used to commercials.
Yeah.
If I'm watching a movie, there's a commercial. It's a food break. It's a bathroom break. I'm fine with commercials.
Yeah.
See, that's what happens when you grow up in the 60s and the 70s. It's like, commercials? I don't care.
Right. Exactly.
It's a break.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting, though. 866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Surviving and thriving as an owner-operator has just as much to do with managing costs as it does with generating revenue. Like the chief financial officer of any company, you have to be concerned about rising costs, especially without increases in revenue. Trying to reduce costs, let alone make sense of them, can be a complicated task. Understanding basic principles of operating costs can save you thousands of dollars a year. A penny saved could be $1,000 earned. Saving just 1 penny per mile over 100,000 miles driven annually will deliver $1,000 to the bottom line at the end of the year. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, now, I think it was it Friday that the president said, okay, funding's cut for PBS and NPR?
Yeah, that was the end of last week. Yeah.
You want to hear Jonathan Capehart here?
All right.
Look how intellectually disingenuous this is. And he's outright, he's setting a premise that is a lie, and then he continues with it. But, I mean, it's funny because when you think about it, Eric, just from debate skills, this is such a bad argument. Listen to this here, what he has to say.
Jonathan, what do you make of the president's moves at this time? Not just about PBS. This is not just about us. It's part of a larger campaign here.
Right. But I think what the president is doing, it is a fundamental attack on our Constitution, on the foundation of this country. People need to understand and remember there is only one profession that is protected in the Constitution, and it is the free press. It is the press. And why? Because the founders understood that the survival of a democracy depends on an informed citizenry. And the citizenry can only be informed by a press that can report and report on the affairs of the republic free and unfettered. And whether they are, come from the left or from the right, the government should not interfere with that reporting. And
did he have anything to say about the New York Post back in 2020?
No. And all of the social media, the FBI being embedded essentially in the social media. No. This isn't about PBS can go on and do what all the other networks do. By the liberals, by the way, the liberals should not be concerned at all because it will survive because of viewers like you. Don't cry. Order the James Taylor DVD box set and the Joan Baez tote bag, and they'll be fine. I don't. Okay, I got to Google and see if there's a Joan Baez tote bag.
Well, first off, what Trump did has nothing to do.
He's shutting them down.
He's not shutting down. He said, hey, you're biased. Well, number one, no, I don't care whether you're conservative or liberal. I don't want any taxpayer money going to the media.
Well, that's the
None.
thing is that
Zero.
He at the very end kind of defeated his whole point, because saying that it should be done without intervention from the government. Okay, we're with you on that, including money from the government. It's the whole point. Go out and continue to get corporate sponsors or whatever. You could play commercials. It's the way it's done. Why do we need to fund it as taxpayers?
No, there's no reason. But that's not a First Amendment issue.
Nope.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. One of the things that's it's not just on the federal level with Trump, with cutting off the funds to PBS and NPR, which I'm assuming there's going to be didn't even see. Was there a stay put on that from a judge? I would assume there would be. But you had the head of PBS come out or was it NPR? I forgot which one it was, who just said, no, we're not biased. We're not biased. Of course they're biased. Just like 60 Minutes is biased. They're trying to sell you the same thing that the American public has rejected already. And because the government should not be funding any broadcasting.
Right.
They should not be funding any particular broadcast. They should not be funding newsrooms, like in California, and I think New Mexico is the other state that are looking at local newsrooms in small towns saying, okay, you need to be funded. We'll give you a grant. Well, the grant is what? If the grant's coming from a Democrat administration, you know that as a news person, correct?
Right. Exactly.
Sorry, can't have that. That taints my perception of what you might say. Yeah, but if they don't, doesn't matter. Because the money's coming from the government, you have to look at it. Nope. Sorry, can't be done. We have the internet. The majority of people get their news from the internet. Even in most towns, even small towns, you have cell service.
Yep.
If you're a very, very small town on an interstate or within an interstate, you got cell service.
Yep.
You've got it. You know what's going on in the news. There is no lack of information to 99.99% of the people. And to justify to say, but that other 0.001% needs to have government-funded news, no, they don't.
No, they don't. Absolutely don't. No. Look, and the leftists in these newsrooms at NPR and at PBS, they understand. They know that it's been the left primarily that supports this kind of activity.
Yes.
They're in friendly territory. Now, having said that, we're trying to get the GOP under control when it comes to spending. In fact, as we speak. But the idea of funding broadcasting should have never happened.
No.
It should have never happened. Sell commercials, do whatever you have to do, or get corporate sponsors. If you want to do your long-form presentation, and then for 5 minutes at the end of that, whatever it is, whatever show it is, at the end of that show for 5 minutes, you give kudos or whatever to all of the sponsors, however you want to do it. But taxpayer money should not be part of it.
Well, we saw what happened from the left, even the left inside of Donald Trump's government back in October of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Trump was still president.
Right.
Doesn't matter. There were people in the government working against what he wanted, and we saw the censoring. We saw the FBI involved in social media.
Mm-hmm.
We saw the censoring of the New York Post on a story that was true.
Right.
And the Democrats were for it. So please, Jonathan K. Park, please spare me this Well, because we're not being funded, this is a First Amendment issue.
Yeah, no.
Because that's the question.
Right.
Because it was based on what Trump did Friday, and he went right into, he deflected immediately. Well, it's very important that the press remains free. You're free to do whatever you want.
Right.
You can go wherever you want. Freedom of speech does not mean government funding, but everybody knows it. They can't even, for this so-called intellectual that Jonathan Capehart is, which I don't agree with, but how he is promoted, for him to give such an intellectually bankrupt and pretend he's completely ignorant, because that's what he's doing. He's pretending to be stupid.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit there. I got to deflect this because I can't justify government money coming to PBS. I can't defend that. So what I'm going to say is this is an all issue of Donald Trump and the government trying to destroy free press, and it's a First Amendment issue. And the audience to PBS is so stupid they'll go along with me.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's and that's what this is going to be, I guess, their fight. You won't have shows like this. You won't have broadcasts like this. You'll have to live without.
Yeah, whatever. Nope. We'll find something else.
If you guys don't want to go out and get sponsors or sell commercials or do whatever to raise revenue for your entity, then that's on you. And if there's no demand for it, all right, bye.
And being such a small amount that you always claim it is.
Right. It shouldn't
government money. It shouldn't be a problem. Why this huge fit?
Right.
Why are you lying and saying it's a First Amendment issue when it is not? Why would you have to lie about something that you claim the money isn't that important, yet you claim then, or you attempt to deflect to imply that non-government funding of PBS is somehow against the First Amendment to the Constitution? Jonathan Capehart knows that's a lie. He knows he's lying. He's not stupid. He knows he's lying, and everybody sitting on that panel knew he was lying.
Right. But you got to put up the fight, right? You got to make it up as you go along. You've got to make it something that it's not.
It's sort of like what's her name? Peppermint Patty over the weekend, claiming she never saw signs of the president's mental decline.
Oh, yeah,
Jen Psaki.
Jen Psaki.
Yeah.
I never saw that. Well, let me ask you, Jen. Did you ever meet Joe Biden? Was there any FaceTime at all with Joe Biden? It's just garbage. I didn't see it. I never saw it. By the way, shouldn't that have been the first question of anybody in the media? Because she's in the media now. It should have been her. Hey, Jen, let's circle back to the time when you were in the Biden White House. Remember then, huh?
Well, we knew it during the 2020 campaign.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the standard narrative. Biden is staying. They want Biden to stay in the house. They want him to stay in the basement.
Right.
They don't want him to talk. Why? Because you could see that his cognitive abilities were decreasing. The analysis for Jen Psaki saying she never saw it means one or two things. She's either lying or she has no observation skills at all.
Yeah, right.
Zero observation skills.
One of the two.
And therefore, MSNBC should not fire her. They should give her a big raise because they believe she can take the complete and total and utter delusion that she can sell that to the audience successfully.
Yeah. Yep.
I never saw anything.
By the way, that would be the first thing that she ever sold successfully to any audience.
Well, that's what they're looking. When you think about it, with everything going on in the Democratic Party, with David Hogg.
Mm-hmm. We're going with Hogg, not Hogue anymore.
We're going with Hogg now.
Yeah.
With David Hogg, the whole thing is they can't sell their delusional mindset. We need new, younger people to do it.
Right.
Jen Psaki is in there. Okay, we got Joy Reid's gone. We got Jen Psaki in there. She talks at a quieter level, maybe does not use the same incendiary words, but she still talks complete and total delusion which we believe she can sell better to the audience at MSNBC that is craving delusion.
Yeah. Look, at least she's playing the old liberal playbook. Deny, 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 deny. Right? But it's the only thing you can do, but it's so blatantly obvious that she's lying. Again, they wanted you to believe, because the question is, Jen, do you see it now? Do you see it? Can you look at videos of when you were in the White House with Biden now and see it? That's the question. Because if you're saying you still can't see it from videos from back then, well, you're delusional and you're lying.
But you know how you know she's lying?
She's talking?
No, these are the key words. I'm not a doctor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's how you know she's lying.
Right.
When anybody talks about Biden who knew him and says, I'm not a doctor.
Right.
Well, nobody was expecting for you to look at Joe Biden and give a precise diagnosis as to whether it's delusion, old age, dementia,
right,
and various types of dementia. Nobody's asking that. It was just the recognition that his cognitive abilities are slowing down. And any of us that have parents that are older, as both you and I do, we have gone through this.
Yep.
And we know it. And you see it and you recognize it. And then you're the ones that say you need to go to the doctor.
Yeah. Right.
And then the doctor will diagnose it.
Right.
But most people who have dementia, it's the people around them or have a great loss of cognitive abilities. It is the people around them that first notice it. And so when she says, I'm not a doctor, that's how you know she's lying.
Yep. She's throwing everything out, basically. She has no ability to judge because she's not a doctor.
Right.
Yeah.
Look at that person. That guy took a gun and shot that person. And there's blood.
I'm no doctor.
So you believe the victim was shot?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
Help, this man needs an ambulance. I'm not a doctor, and you're not either. How do
Yeah.
you know he needs an ambulance?
Right.
He might just be lying down. The foam coming from his mouth could be old toothpaste. We don't know.
How do you know that's not ketchup?
I'm no doctor.
It's like,
yeah.
But it's gotten
That's how stupid
the
it is.
narrative has gotten so stupid. It's like, come on.
Yeah. I'm no doctor.
That's how I knew it. I'm not a doctor. Aging happens quite quickly.
Right.
Dementia can accelerate slower, can accelerate. It can accelerate quicker.
Let me ask
a person's cognitive abilities.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Jen. Do you take any over-the-counter medications at home? Because you probably shouldn't. Because
you're not a doctor.
You're not a doctor.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
I never saw that person. Not a single time.
I'm not a doctor.
That's a lie. That's a lie. She's lying. We all know she's lying.
So-and-so died. Well, I'm no coroner. My gosh. That's it's just it's the extent that they'll go to save themselves.
Yeah. Because now this is hitting big time. Now this is really that's the topic that they're being confronted with, and it's the media being confronted with it on the left.
Well, because
you and she's part of the media now, but
yeah,
you knew it.
And again, that's the question for her now. Well, do you see it now? Do you see it now? Can you watch videos from back when you were in the White House and see it when everybody else did? You're lying. Yeah. You helped cover it up. Along with then First Lady Jill Biden, by the way. You mentioned family members. Shame on Jill Biden. If someone is suffering, the family members are the ones who have to be the first caretakers. They're the ones on the front lines until professional help is required. That's the way it works.
And the initial diagnosis from any of these mental diseases, as we know, it's the family and friends that notice it first.
Right. Exactly.
So, but her to claim she didn't see it one single time, a lie.
Right.
But how you know it's a lie is when anybody says about Biden, I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
Well, we weren't asking you for a specific diagnosis.
Right.
866-98-RED-I.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-I.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We'll have more on the Democrats trying to rewrite what happened in 2024 with Joe Biden in 2024, 2023, 2022, 2021.
Exactly.
2020, we'll get to that. But I was reading one op-ed piece that said, don't let the Democrats try to, reframe this story.
Yeah.
They knew, and they allowed it. And now, the funny thing is, it's Democrats that are really talking about it with each other.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
It's really fascinating to watch. They're all coming out going, how do I cover my huge posterior?
Yeah, it's the excuse-making contest.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, so how are things coming along with the reconciliation bill? Here's Mike Johnson over the weekend.
Now, here's the progress report. Good news. Over the last week, 7 of our 11 committees of jurisdiction got their pieces of that big, beautiful bill done. And so we have 4 committees yet to go. And then we push it back through the Budget Committee to merge it all together and send it to the Senate. I put it on a very aggressive timetable because, Trey, we got to get this done for the people as soon as possible. It will send stability out there to the markets, the bond market, the stock market. It will allow job creators and innovators and entrepreneurs to know that their tax rates are stabilized and permanent going forward so they can plan accordingly. And it will be like jet fuel to the economy. So, and by the way, will prevent the largest tax increase in U.S. history, which is what would happen by default at the end of this year. Failure is not an option here. We'll get.
What was left out?
Well, just the one thing? I don't know. Can you get it down to one thing?
Well, yeah.
What?
Cuts. Number one, what's in the bill? Number two, are you going to cut?
Yeah, I was going to say spending, but yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's
Until I see the bill, everything is blah 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 for me.
Well, it is. Because show me where you've got a GOP in unison in the House. Show me where you've got the votes. In fact, the speaker talking about it tells me that's part of them working on pulling those votes together after they told fiscal conservatives on the CR, well, you can fight down the road. Well, we're down the road. Here we are. Now, are you going to tell them to stand down again? and tell them they're going to be responsible for, as he puts it, the largest tax increase in history? Is that going to be the guilt trip that you lay on fiscal conservatives? I don't know where it goes. I have zero confidence we're going to have any cuts. We're not going to have $1 in cuts. It's not going to happen. They'll promote it as we cut this, we cut this, we cut this, we cut this, and it's all paying for this. And look at the great things we're doing. I don't expect any change whatsoever. None. Because what I just heard from the speaker is blah, 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 blah. What I need to know about is that $36 trillion heaping, steaming pile of debt we have.
Well, you know, when you look at it, this would have been in the first 100 days since Trump's been in office, we spent $200 billion more than last year. Mm-hmm. Okay, now that's not Trump's fault because that's the past budget,
right?
But the fact is, we're spending more, and the question for us would be: I don't care whether Trump says there's $163 billion in cuts. I want to know that will the budget in its entirety reduce the deficit or just keep it even or just keep it indexed to inflation? Because if you can't do that, if you can't cut a penny after all the hype and hoopla over DOGE, we're never going to get it done.
Yeah.
And I want to know that as soon as possible because then I can retire. Because at that point, it'll be like, well, the Democrats don't want to actually have fiscal sanity, and neither do the Republicans. So what does it matter?
Well, and that's it. I mean, if you look at the waste and fraud, a lot of what hit the media with DOGE was waste and fraud. People won't be affected by it. How do you not cut that completely? Well, okay, we'll cut it. And we'll use those cuts to pay for. There's zero change. It won't happen in our lifetime. It does if it doesn't happen now. DOGE was a big deal. Is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that we're having a conversation about it. I mean, it made liberals so angry they're burning EVs. It's a huge deal. It should be an ongoing department. We should be finding ways we should be auditing the spending for taxpayers all of the time. Nonstop.
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff is great. We talked about it last week. You know, modernizing what's going on in the Treasury Department, the IRS, and my God, the way that they're doing things is antiquated, and that's part of government efficiency. But what the biggest sell was first we could save $2 trillion from waste and foreign aid. Mm-hmm. And we said, no, you can't.
No.
And we were criticized for saying, no, you can't. We said, we hope you can get there, but you're not going to save $2 trillion.
Right.
Then it went down to $1 trillion. Now we're down to $160 billion. That's they say a year, but our point is if it's $100 billion, the budget, the overall budget, if it decreases the deficit by $100 billion a year, that will be the biggest accomplishment that we have seen since Newt Gingrich and the 94 Republicans.
Yeah. Yep.
And if we don't see it, then we're never going to get the budget under control ever.
No.
If we didn't get it done now, it's never going to get done. And that's why we said, don't oversell and underdeliver.
Mm-hmm.
Undersell and overdeliver.
Yeah, just do it.
And so we'll see what it comes out to. But we saw last time that you had you call them because that's what they call themselves, the MAGA influencers. They were screaming that Chip Roy was a rhino because he wished to cut the budget.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow. You think about it, where a rhino used to be somebody who wouldn't cut spending. Now a rhino is somebody who wishes to cut spending.
Right.
And remember, he needs to get out. He needs to be primaried.
Mm-hmm.
That was the Trump surrogates out there.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because he's saying we've got to cut the budget. We've got to be transparent and honest with the American people about what we're spending. And Trump didn't say it, but his surrogates did all over social media. He needs to be primaried. This rhino, get rid of this rhino.
Mm-hmm.
Because he wants to cut spending now. We'll do it down the road. And if you can't see that, then you need to get out. Okay, we'll go along with it once. We'll go along with it twice. All right, now we're to the third time, as Chip Roy said last week. We were promised twice. And he said that was the figure of $1.5 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they were talking about. Remember, the $4 billion a day is $1.45 trillion a year.
Yep.
We're like, my God, if you've cut that, you've solved the problem.
And it wouldn't affect anyone.
Well, my point, that'd be my first question to Elon Musk. When you said that, did you know it was not true?
Right. Right.
Look, we're sick of BS. I don't care where it comes from. If you promise something, damn it, deliver it.
Well,
Otherwise, don't promise it.
Well, because when you promise it and say it's not going to hurt anyone.
That was the thing, too. Yeah, it's not going to hurt anybody. Nobody will be hurt by it. And we're like, well, then you've just solved it. We said it. If this is true and it's $1.5 trillion a year and nobody's going to suffer, you've unlocked it. DOGE is the best thing that's ever happened in the history of the country.
Right.
You could make the case as a department involved in the domestic fiscal sanity of the government.
Right. And then it dropped to $150 billion a year, and now the president's budget $163 billion.
Yeah. But not overall cuts. Those are cuts that will be used to pay for something else.
Mm-hmm.
So will there be an overall cut in the budget? That's a big come down from $1.5 trillion to we really don't want to talk about whether any of these budgets will reduce the deficit at all. Not the debt. We know the debt's going to be up there. Just the deficit, just a start, just a penny.
It's not going to happen. I have zero confidence it will happen. Not going to happen.
And I hope you're wrong.
I would love to be wrong.
I know. Same with me. There are some things I would love to be wrong on completely.
But I'm not.
Yeah.
And I won't be.
Otherwise,
I'm confident I won't be wrong on
otherwise
this.
they would be talking about it.
Well, they would. And
because
it would be the entire party, not just Chip Roy up there.
Yeah.
All of them in the House would be up there. It'd be a massive, massive amount of GOPers up there at a podium.
But,
look at what we're going to do.
The problem is, you look at it right now with Medicaid, and it's like conservatives are like, why are Republicans, like Josh Hawley was against the expansion of Obamacare.
Mm-hmm.
Obamacare, people may not know it, it's all over Medicaid.
Oh yeah.
The expansion of Medicaid is Obamacare.
Mm-hmm.
And as they say, they treat able-bodied men better than mothers with a child, pregnant women.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have the article for you coming out. And so it's like, and Josh Hawley is now not for cutting anything in Medicaid.
Yeah.
Not even the stuff that goes to able-bodied males.
Right.
That means they can work.
Right.
That got a lot of discussion over the weekend. Was it 6 million? I think Mike Rowe was talking about that again. It's like, well, what are we going to do? And that's the other question when we talk about what kind of jobs do people want.
Mm.
You used to be on the assembly line. That's a job people coveted. It's not anymore.
No.
Tasks that involve physical labor is not what the American public wants to do. Then again, you may have to do it if you have no other choice, but if government programs ensure that you have health care and the minimal sustenance of food stamps, whatever you need, there are people that are okay with it.
Yeah, why try?
Apparently, they believe 6 million able-bodied men that are okay with not working and not looking for work.
Right.
And that's a challenge.
It's not just surfer dude anymore.
No.
6 million surfer dude.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
Red Eye Radio, he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Coming up following the bottom of the hour, when a politician says absolutely nothing. Says something, but says absolutely nothing. We'll get to that. I'm just reading this article here. Beckett Adams, National Review. The media's attempt to rewrite the history of the Biden cover-up will fail. Why? There are too many receipts.
Yeah.
Oh, man, because the funny thing about journalism is that reporters tend to write things down, meaning we have the receipts.
Yeah.
Lots of them when it comes to the concerted effort to allay voters' concerns about Biden's age. The receipts show that media participation went well beyond remarks from the old Democratic pundit or anchor. The campaign to protect Biden was supported by entire newsrooms, by straight news journalists, and by so-called fact checkers. Probably the most damning example came in 2024, just before Biden's disastrous debate. The White House was claiming that the mountains of video showing him struggling to articulate simple sentences and perform basic physical tasks, were merely cheap fakes. That is footage edited unfairly to give the appearance of being senile. News media wasted no time in mainstreaming the White House narrative and the term cheap fakes, even though the evidence went the other way, showing that many such videos had not been altered in any way. Nevertheless, news organizations such as the Associated Press claim that footage showing a dazed-looking Biden being led by the hand of former President Obama at a fundraising event in Los Angeles was not what it appeared to be. Obama merely wanted to appear chummy, the AP reported, citing a lone anonymous source. A spokesperson for the Democratic surrogate who moderated the fundraiser likely said that it was nonsense to suggest that Biden froze. That was good enough for the AP to publish a fact check in its fact focus. George Clooney, who headlined the dinner, later claimed in a bombshell New York Times opinion article that it was this event that he realized Biden was no longer the man everyone knew as vice president or senator. We all knew it at that point. And the AP is saying, no, it's completely false, completely wrong. Sorry, we have the receipts. Speaking of Associated Press, the White House correspondent Will Weissert, who teed up Biden's secretary during the short-lived cheap fakes narrative with the following: there seems to be a rash of videos that have been edited to make the president appear especially frail or mentally confused. I'm wondering if the White House is especially worried about the fact that this appears to be the pattern of what we're seeing of more. That's the White House correspondent who teed that question up. There seems to be a rash of videos that have been edited. There was no evidence of it, none.
Right.
But they said it.
Right.
Responding, Karine Jean-Pierre, who was likely thankful for such a helpful questions. They are cheap fakes video. They were done in bad faith.
Yeah.
The Washington Post decried the supposed preponderance of cheap fakes on social media, claiming such content had become staple of Republican attacks against Biden. CBS News published a primer news article titled, "What Are Cheap Fakes?" Biden fell victim to simpler versions of deep fakes, the news network explained, focusing on footage from the gathering of world leaders in which Biden ambled away from the group, who had just watched the skydiving demonstration to gab with some of the skydivers. Two versions of the scenes made the round, one that showed the skydivers, one that did not. The White House pointed to the video that included the skydivers as exculpatory evidence, arguing that Biden merely wanted to say hello. Critics were not convinced, as the president's simple wandering away from the delegation of world leaders seemed more befitting of a child with attention span issues than the leader of the world's nuclear power.
Right.
Both versions of the videos also showed a man seemingly disconnected, slow, stiff, and confused about his surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
Given what we know, who do you suppose was closer to the truth? The critics who pointed to the video or CBS? Humorously enough, in its defense of Biden's behavior and its attacks on cheap fakes, CBS originally included in its article the raw footage shared by the White House and labeled it digitally altered video. CBS later replaced that footage with a tightly cropped version, labeling it editing video. At Chuck Todd's former place of employment, NBC News reporters worked tirelessly to produce articles with headlines such as "Conservative media uses misleading camera angle of Biden to falsely claim he was wandering aimlessly." And they really go after Chuck Todd.
Yeah.
In this article, I got to find out.
Well, and the whole cheap fake thing was made to sound like deep fake. Remember?
Yeah.
They just came up with their own new terminology, cheap fake.
Here it is. Todd said to Chris Cillizza just last week, "I just refuse to accept this stupid premise because it's a right-wing manufactured right-wing premise in order to stain the media," Todd said during a recent interview with Chris Cillizza of former CNN pundit Chris Cillizza. The former NBC anchor added with regards to the pundits he blames. You're going to love this one. "The media's got plenty of things to attack them for, and there are MSNBC and CNN and pundits that absolutely carry the water for Joe Biden, but they're not journalists. They're former strategists that carry the water for Joe Biden."
Yep.
He said that.
Yep.
Chuck Todd.
Wow.
What he called them, political activists,
Mm-hmm.
which is what he was. Is.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, I just happened to see this audio cut. It's from 2019, but I had to play it anyway because it was just, when I saw it, I just burst out laughing. And I said, well, I don't care whether it's from 2019 or not. It's just a perfect example of a politician that's asked a question, that answers it, but doesn't answer it. Doesn't give you anything. And it was back in 2019, and it was Anderson Cooper asking Elizabeth Warren if Trump should be impeached.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
You have called for impeachment proceedings to be initiated against President Trump. What do you say to those Democrats who say, look, this is not the time. It's going to take away focus from winning in 2020. Speaker Pelosi told her caucus again just today that she has no plans to immediately initiate impeachment proceedings.
This is not about politics. This is about principle. This is about what kind of a democracy we have. In a dictatorship, everything in government revolves around protecting the one person at the center, but not in our democracy and not under our Constitution. We have checks and balances, and we have to proceed here in a way understanding our place in history that not only protects democracy now, but protects democracy when the next president comes in, and the next president, and the president after that.
As you can see, he goes, but it was just, it was beautiful because all she did was simply tell how the government, how it works in her opinion.
Right.
It didn't answer the question at all.
Right.
And that was for collusion with Russia.
Yeah.
That's when they were talking way back early in 2019 about getting him for collusion in Russia, which was, again, a false story. But I just saw that and had to play it because I'm like, wow, she said nothing.
Yeah.
There was nothing said there.
Right.
It was interesting. Say something. Because if you would tell me we need to impeach somebody, you're talking about impeaching this person, why? I'd say because they did this. I don't need to give a history lesson to the world. When you do that, you're deflecting because you don't have anything.
Well, you don't have anything. They have nothing. Yep. They've had nothing all along. And they're back to the protect democracy, dictatorship. By the way, as you mentioned, it's all centered around protecting the person in the center. You mean like Joe Biden and covering up his cognitive issues?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was 2019, though.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still, the point is made, and it's a totally legit point.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go back. I want to go back because we had talked about how ever since the White House Correspondents' Dinner, the left's been arguing with themselves about the whole Biden thing and trying to, cover their own large posteriors is what they're attempting to do. Well, I didn't know, Chuck Todd's been one of the best at, and then here we go. Ready? All right.
I could argue that the White House press corps didn't make this an issue, and they could have. Where's the president today? How come he's not doing a public event today? How come he hasn't done a press conference today? There wasn't that. So I accept that didn't exist in that press room. And I think this is where the Biden White House created a chill among reporters, meaning if you dared do that, good luck getting your interview that you were hoping to get with Biden or Harris, et cetera. So they made it clear there was a price to pay, I think, to some reporters. So yeah, I do think some pulled their punches in that press room because they were daily interacting with the Biden press shop.
No, they didn't want Trump to win, and they wanted Biden to win. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
This whole thing. What he said, he goes because they were hoping to get an interview with Biden or Harris. They didn't do any interviews.
No, they didn't. No.
What are you talking about?
Right.
I mean, it's just like the other thing I've always wondered, because being in the media as long as I've been, I know that's been used before. When you do interviews with politicians, you don't want to hit them too hardly.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to hit them too hard. Excuse me, not too hardly, too hard, because they might not come back on again. And my point's always been, then why interview them in the first place?
Don't have them on.
If they're not going to answer your question, and we know it, and you would think that the media would know it today, well, I can only ask the questions that I know would be acceptable to them. To hell with that. I'm not doing the interview.
Right.
Yeah. I went through that. I went through that with Jimmy Carter back about, I don't know, it was before this show started, so probably 22 years ago. He had written some type of Christmas book. This is around Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And he was doing the interviews with everybody. But the only thing people were asked, nobody cared about the book. But nobody cared that Jimmy Carter wrote a Christmas book. They just didn't care. What they wanted to ask him was questions on Israel. It was Israel and what was going on in the Middle East and all this.
Mm-hmm.
And so my narrative was the same thing. So it probably was a segment that came out of we were trying to get him at the top of the hour. And he's on hold. And they said he'll only talk about the Christmas book. If there's any other questions, he will end the interview. And this is as I'm going on the air. So I'm talking, I've promised that Jimmy Carter is going to be on. And I said, well, and my producers tell me that. I said, well, that's unacceptable. He's done other interviews. So it went all the way on, back and forth. And Carter's waiting on hold the whole time. Or talking with, his people who are talking to my people. So we get into the commercial break. So I've talked 10 minutes on the air about Jimmy Carter. I said, well, we're having problems, and, they've limited the questions that I can ask. Well, finally, it gets to be about, okay, he's agreed to it. Well, it was like I had a minute and a half left in that segment. They said he's agreed to it, but he has to leave at the bottom of the hour. A minute and a half. I had 90 seconds, and it was done. And people were complaining. How come you didn't talk to him? It's like, it's nothing I can do. It's like, okay, done with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, because the attitude is that, well, this will raise your profile if you have this person on.
You think anybody gave a damn if I interviewed Jimmy Carter 20 years ago?
Well, it would, from my perspective, I don't give a damn.
Yeah. Oh, I wasn't disagreeing.
Yeah.
I wasn't attacking you.
Well, no. I mean, no. I'm saying if it's my show, I don't give a damn. Because I know they're going to dance around it. I don't care that the press secretary for so-and-so is on, zero interest. Because you're not going to answer questions. You're going to sit and dance the entire time. I have zero interest in doing that.
Same with me.
None.
People said, "Wouldn't you want to interview the great politician?" Nope, absolutely not.
No,
because nobody's going to answer a question.
We were invited to go. I forget what the initiative was. It was a Jimmy Carter, one of his projects.
Ethanol.
And was it ethanol?
It was ethanol. Yeah.
And we said no.
Yeah. They were so insulted. They wanted. This is after a couple of years because it was a couple of years after I had the discussion. And Jimmy Carter's people wanted us to fly, right?
Oh, they were going to fly us out, yeah.
To fly us out to meet Jimmy Carter to talk about the benefits of ethanol. And we had to say, well, we don't agree with the benefits of
Not only that, we
ethanol.
want an open interview on a number of things.
Right.
And that ain't going to happen.
They were so insulted when we said no, weren't they?
Yeah.
Remember how insulted
we
they
were
were?
one of the first, if not the first, to be asked.
Yeah.
And nope, not going to happen.
Well, we had said because look, we don't want to, what do you call it? We don't want to ambush him.
Well,
but we are not. We understand ethanol has its purposes,
right?
But to put in cars does the opposite of what he wants to do, in our opinion.
Well,
so
we would have mandates. Are off the table for me.
Right. We would disagree with him on that. That had to be before Bush signed it. Then that had to be before 2008 or December of 2007.
Yeah.
Because you and I weren't together that long when that happened,
mm-hmm.
And it was like Jimmy, like everybody was so excited in our company, and we what? Go, no, it doesn't work out. Our opinions.
It's like they were helping us pack our bags or something.
It's like our
calm
opinions,
down. We're not going.
Yeah, our opinions are separate from him. If he's willing to know that it will be more adversarial because we disagree with him,
right?
We respect him. We respect the presidency, but we don't agree with his opinion. Boy, they were so insulted. They were angry at us.
Mm-hmm.
They really were angry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, get over it. It's it's just for me. I don't have any interest in building my profile by having somebody on like that. And that's what they believe. They believe, and people do it all the time. We're going to have so-and-so on, but you're just going to help them spread whatever propaganda it is.
Yeah. And you saw, for example, with Crenshaw and Pierre and other representatives of Biden that would deflect, and they would say, "You're not answering the question." I've answered your question.
Mm-hmm.
No, you didn't. You answered somebody else's question.
And then they would say, "Well, now you're being rude."
Right. Now you're being rude. You keep demanding that I answer your question. I've answered your question 3 times. No, you haven't. You answered a question. You gave an answer to a question that I did not ask.
Right.
And you should call them out on it, and they just didn't. They would just, it's like, okay, fine. Well, I think you come across wimpy as a reporter.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never want that as my job.
Right.
Where you felt intimidated that, okay, I better stop. I go, wait a minute. No. You answered a question, but it wasn't my question. My question was this. You answered a question to this, and I'd keep it going. But then they would say, I've done it. I've been in interviews where the politicians have said, now you're being rude because you're trying to get me to repeat the same thing. No, I don't. I want you to answer my question. See, you're rude. Now your voice is raising because you're being uncooperative. You're trying to BS my audience.
Yeah.
Well, see, now you're completely and totally rude. I'm never coming on your show again. Bye.
Well, Chuck Todd just pointed out everything that goes on inside that room.
Right.
Well, they want to be called on. They want to get interviews. They want to do these things. Why? Because they want to raise their own profile. Right. My profile means diddly and squat. I want the American people to know the truth.
It's not about holding government accountable.
It's not going to get done in that setting. I have zero interest. None.
Yeah. Just amazing.
My profile being raised has nothing to do with the interest of the American people and the truth being told.
Yep. And they wish to push a particular political narrative, too. And they do enjoy pushing that political narrative with the people that agree with them in the White House because they're political activists.
Well, they love carrying the water because, and this is one thing that was confounding to the liberal media during the Biden years. They would show up thinking, look, they're going to have the pail of water, ready for us. They're just going to hand it to us, and we're going to just walk out of here every day, and it's so easy to do, and they couldn't get that done. And it became frustrating for the liberal activist media. They didn't want to be a part of it. That's the thing that Chuck Todd won't tell you, is the frustration that we saw. We knew what was going on every day. They couldn't get the talking points. Biden and Karine Jean-Pierre were basically arguing with liberal activist media. It wasn't just Pete Ducey.
Yeah.
They were defiant because Biden, naturally, is a defiant individual and wanted nothing to do with it.
866-98-RED-I.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here this morning. The GOP and Medicaid. That coming up here in a little bit. Will they prioritize people that really need it or able-bodied males also? That's one of the questions that's being asked. We will get to that coming up in a little bit. Trump trolling about him being Pope.
Right.
Set off MSNBC.
Right. They're so religious and whatnot.
Exactly. I mean, I burst out laughing. It's like, they're angry. He's insulting insult. I'm Catholic. Yeah. There was no insult. I laughed. Why?
This is about him.
Why? Because we know there is no possibility. We're intelligent enough to know there's no possibility of Trump becoming the Pope. Trump knows he can't become a Pope. But when the Pope died and somebody suggested it, it came out as humorous.
Now, he did say if the next Pope is not from the U.S., he will put a tariff on the Pope. So there's that.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. All right. And that AI thing came out of Trump being the Pope. I believe it was Friday, right? Is that Friday? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we hadn't talked about it yet. I just don't know if it happened on Thursday and we just ignored it because we just thought it was funny, and then the media went crazy about it after we were done on the air. You never know. But here's MSNBC talking about it. You ready for this? All right, here we go. All right, now they're concerned. Now MSNBC is concerned about Catholics' feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the reason.
Exactly. Here we go.
No respect for any religion except himself.
And ultimately, this is about propaganda, right? And I think Ruth Benguet made this point earlier in the show, which I think is very important. even if they do this in jest, and J.D. Vance came out and said that this is a joke or he can take this as a joke, he ultimately is pushing the boundaries of what we think is acceptable, normal, joking behavior. Donald Trump is not a comedian. And for me, where I draw the line is, look, if he makes this offensive comment as a private citizen on his own private individual account, so be it. But the problem is that it gets reposted by the official White House account. That is your account, my account, everyone's account. That is our taxpayer dollars that are paying for it. The White House official social media account should not be mocking American Catholics or Catholics around the world, but certainly not American Catholics who are going through a period of mourning right now and whose tax dollars should not be used to mock their religion in any way, shape, or form.
And earlier today, you were talking about some of the hypocrisy here.
Yes.
That there was a lot of Sturm und Drang about the use of the Last Supper during the
Paris Olympics, and then they were offended by that, but this one, they were.
So there you go. Do you think MSNBC has found God?
Well, I was going to say, let's talk abortion.
All right, we can move on to the next topic.
That's over. Thank you. Good night. Drive safely. Well, he's mocking religion. He's attacking the Catholic Church. Hey, guys, I just want to interject. Can we talk abortion? He's doing what he always does. He's trolling. But it's almost half self-deprecating humor and self-promoting humor. It's both. It's equally both.
Well, the Christian parody site, the Babylon Bee, had a field day with it.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
What Trump will do as Pope.
Right, exactly.
Communion wine will now be replaced with Diet Coke. Alcohol shall never touch Trump's lips.
Yeah.
Big Macs will now be allowed on Friday during Lent.
Yeah, you saw the AI video, right, that they made of him? That was just legendary. Because, again, the humor lies in the idea of Trump being Pope.
Right.
And he knows that. Trump knows that. Wow.
As I said, I don't think they had it in here. My first thing was the
orange smoke?
No. That the 10 Commandments will be replaced with the American Commandments. That was it.
And there's going to be 50, just like the states, not just 10.
Massive tariffs will be levied against purgatory. We will have so much better terms on time spent in purgatory, believe me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, it was, again, it was, I mean, in a way, I thought Trump was making fun of himself.
That's exactly what I see it as.
That he is the that he's the dictator. And the fact is, it came up really because of he was actually asked a question on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What about people saying that you should be Pope?
Yeah.
Because that happened. I don't think he even led that. That came from what do you call it? X.
Mm-hmm.
That came from social media, where people just automatically said, okay.
Yeah, the groundswell was about that. Yeah.
Right, he's always called an authoritarian. He's called a dictator.
Right.
Well, then the next thing he's got to do is take over, become Pope, too.
Right.
And he found it humorous.
Right.
And everybody found it
was
humorous.
A joke.
Unless you don't have a sense of humor.
Right. It was a joke.
Yes.
It's self-deprecating, a bit self-promoting, but self-deprecating humor. Get over it.
I know. It's like, but MSNBC,
they're offended.
We're defending the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
From this outright attack from Trump.
Right. Now we'll go after their hospitals when it comes to abortion. But how dare Trump make a joke?
By the way, if Trump reposts something that he saw on AI, that he saw, and reposts it, it doesn't cost the taxpayer any money.
No. And they're screaming that PBS is going to be taken off the air. That's taxpayer money. Can we talk PBS?
Right.
NPR?
You repost something. From what I know, it doesn't cost you any money to do that.
Right.
So
yeah,
that argument
it's
fell
humor.
flat. Yeah, of course it's humor.
By the way, I would argue humor adds to morale. So we can forget about all the other problems, like the president's own party and tax cuts and spending cuts.
Well, I thought most everything was a troll this weekend to see what response he could get.
Oh yeah, it
you
really
know,
was.
He's very good at doing that, and I thought, whether it's Alcatraz or whether it's the tariffs on movies or whether it was that, there's there may be part of him serious in the other two, but there's also a bunch of, I think, trolling, and as he said about Alcatraz, imagery, because they were said. I think he was. I don't know if he was asked, but he said, well, this is because the image needs to be that we're tough on criminals. So it's not about the substance. It's like, well, you had the Supermax prisons. They're, except for one, they've all been, redone or closed.
Yeah.
And so, that entire thing there. So I just thought, let's get the media on 5 different things that really I don't plan on doing much with and see where they go. And then I'll just keep moving forward doing what I'm doing. I got the most thing out of the most thing I saw from Trump supporters was, wow, what a troll that was, and they fell for it.
Well, and I would argue, too, if you want, the rebuilding of Alcatraz and turning it into a hard prison again is the imagery to portray that we're tough on crime. Well, keep in mind, it's just a few miles where many of the homeless poop on sidewalks. So that's one of those uphill battles, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, we're tough on crime. Yeah, are we?
And we want to protect Vicky's job with the Park Service.
That's right.
Okay, what?
Yeah.
All we'll say is Phil Hartman's role in So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Seriously, it's going down as one of the greatest movies ever made. I mean, the more I think about that movie.
So,
Stephen Wright as the pilot.
We were talking about it last week again.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's listening to me.
Yeah.
But I went home.
And it was
and the first
under,
thing that appeared was, no, not the actual movie. But an entire, 90-minute podcast analyzing every part of So I Married an Axe Murderer with Mike Myers.
I got to find that.
And they agreed. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I did get to the part where they did say, the whole thing with him in the house.
Yeah.
Acting as both himself and his father.
That should have been a spinoff movie.
Was just the greatest scene. It was just the greatest scene ever. And then they mentioned Phil Hartman telling the story about Vicky, and I can't describe what he describes.
Yeah.
In that from the inmate.
Yeah. Stephen Wright, Charles Grodin.
Yeah,
I need to commandeer your car. No,
but we need to protect Vicky's job with the Park Service, United States Park Service.
Yeah.
By the way, they're the ones that run it, and I don't know whether even if he wanted to do it, whether he can do it because it's a historical site now. And they claim it makes money.
Yeah.
1.5 million tourists a year, paying $30. I guess do they have I've never been there. I've looked at it from the pier, but I've never been there.
Right.
But is there concessions and
right.
memorabilia?
Right. Where can we get a Coke? Or Diet Coke if you're going to
Diet Coke, yes.
Yeah. If the president has his preference. It's I think there are other ways to demonstrate that we're tough on crime.
Well, you know what I thought was the thing over the weekend that was really the most substance on dealing with crime is him saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to nominate and confirm so many federal judges." I'm like, yes,
exactly.
I mean, if you actually if you want to move forward on it, that's how you really move forward on it,
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Because these judges are the ones, and it's absolutely true. These judges do not care. They don't. And you and I said it. The Democrats try to make the case that judges are above the law, that, we have the three branches of government, but the only one that's above any suspicion ever is judges, and that's just ridiculous.
Right.
No, they're not.
Right.
And I think America has seen a couple of examples just in the couple of weeks, a former judge from New Mexico and the judge from Wisconsin. And they didn't care about the law.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't care about it. They wanted to be able to preside over courtrooms,
Mm-hmm.
and, they're officers of the court. They're supposed to obey the law. They didn't give a damn.
No.
And it needs to be pointed out that judges are human beings like everyone else. And some subscribe to the oath, some do not.
Right. Yep.
And so you don't see it as much, though, after the two judges. Is anybody defending the Wisconsin judge right now? I didn't see it over the
I
weekend
haven't
at
seen
all.
that. No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I didn't see that at all. And also Garcia. It's the defense of Garcia has gone way down.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of days.
By the way, speaking of Garcia, you know Chip Roy?
Yeah.
He's a Maryland man. He was born in Bethesda. When I think Maryland man, I was like, he's actually a Maryland man. I mean, lives in Texas and represents a district in Texas. But I thought to myself, no, he actually is
He's
example of a Maryland man. That whole thing has to die because they realize they're losing on it. It has to go away. Remember, we started to see the fracturing when, who was it that said on one panel, well, this isn't just about one person. It's like, no, the conversation was about Garcia. That's why we were talking about it as a panel.
Right.
It's about immigration as a whole. Well, they have to separate themselves from it. Now, are we going to see the same thing that we're seeing with Biden? Well, we just didn't see it at the time. Yeah, the guy has MS-13 tattoos on his body. I guess I didn't see that. I didn't know what those symbols stood for.
Yeah, the symbols of MS.
Mm-hmm. I guess I didn't see that. I didn't know. The media acts like it's not, by the way, and maybe they do believe this, but they act like it's not their job to ask questions.
Yeah, no, that's where the bias comes in.
Exactly. Just repeat the narrative, be the activist in the group.
That's why the whole thing, and all this we're talking about came from the White House Correspondents' Dinner last week.
Right.
Last weekend.
A
week ago.
We have to do better.
Yeah, we have to do better with Joe Biden. Now they're questioning themselves. Well, did we do better? No, you sucked at it. Why? Because you're a political activist.
Right.
You wanted Trump to lose. You wanted your guy to win. You stopped being journalists a long time ago. And we have said this to whether it's President Trump, when he said it in the past, don't ask these people to become journalists. They're not.
Right.
You, of anybody, understand what they are. They're political activists, so don't treat them. Don't say to them, you need to be a better journalist. They don't care about being a journalist.
They care nothing about the truth. Nothing.
Just say, hey, you're a political activist.
Yep.
And Trump going on with, Welker and everything else, I wouldn't do it.
No.
I don't see, not that he didn't make points yesterday, but I don't see an upside for doing it. There's no reason to do it. You're not going to convince anybody that watches Meet the Press. That's a loyal fan of Meet the Press.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to convince them of anything.
No, you're not. No, gone are the days of Tim Russert.
Yeah.
And that's when you really should have been afraid.
but he did an okay job. Now,
no, I think he did okay.
Now, I'll say it. I mean, some of the things, for example, when he said that Mike Walz didn't resign, well, I agree with that.
He was
didn't
promoted.
Resign, but he was what do you call it?
Boosted or
elevated?
Elevated.
Is elevated, I think it was. He was elevated to a higher office. It's like, come on, we already called J.D. Vance on it last night when J.D. Vance said, well, you can make the argument.
Yeah.
It was a promotion.
So the Washington Post over the weekend, and again, it's the Washington Post, so I put very little confidence in it. They had the source story that Walz was out because Trump got mad that he was working secretly with Israel on an attack on Iran. And I thought, there's a whole list of things that, I don't know if that's true. I buy almost nothing for the Washington Post. And that was the only source I saw that, unless some other media was repeating what the Washington Post had reported. But you and I had concerns over the whole thing with the messaging app to begin with, and Waltz's response to that. But that's not a promotion. National Security Advisor to Ambassador to the UN. No, not a promotion. No.
I did like the meme. Trump's cabinet in 2 months. Did you see that one?
Oh, yeah. You sent it to me. It's all.
Oh, everybody's Marco Rubio.
It's a bunch of Marco Rubios around him.
Which isn't a bad idea.
If you could clone him.
He's not a bad idea.
Right.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. Due to safety concerns, many motor carriers have policies that limit or prohibit the use of cruise control. If your motor carrier does allow you to use cruise control, you should only use it in good driving conditions during daylight hours and on roads that have light traffic, few curves or hills, and a consistent speed limit. Never use cruise control when operating in adverse driving conditions, including wet, icy, or slippery roads, during rush hour in heavy traffic or on congested highways, at night, or when you're tired or fatigued. During all of these driving scenarios, you want to be controlling and adjusting your speed as you drive instead of having to suddenly brake if you encounter an obstacle. In the case of a slippery road surface, you want to be able to slow your vehicle by not accelerating instead of using the brakes whenever possible. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here, as always.
Thank you.
A bunch of different news out there that we're going to get to here in the next little bit. More on the Democrats and immigration.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear about that woman that was missing for more than 60 years, and they found her?
Wow.
Well, she just left.
Wow.
She wasn't kidnapped. She just
left.
Didn't want to live that life anymore.
Wow.
82 years old now.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. All right, here we go. Now, the one bad thing about Trump mentioning Jasmine Crockett is everything that I own has blown up with messages. You know, she's Gary McNamara's congressperson. She's Gary McNamara's congressperson. You know
what you do? That's harassment. You should call your congressman.
It was hilarious.
Get her on the phone.
It's like,
are you tempted to go to a local meeting when she comes back to the district?
They never hold them on weekends. So I've never been able to go to any government meeting I'm supposed to, because they all hold them during the week at 7 o'clock and I'm sound asleep. So anything that happens does not happen when I'm awake.
Yeah.
So would it make a difference?
No, I would love to be a fly on the wall. I'm not sure in that case I would learn anything new. but just experience the one meeting. Maybe not. Getting arrested is bad, and I wouldn't want to do that. I mean, for being so loud, I'd be screaming. My head would explode. Yeah, I just I just wonder what goes on in those meetings.
So, the latest news story, this from Breitbart. Representative Jasmine Crockett has been accused by a fellow congresswoman of cutting in line at the airport with taxpayer-funded private police escort.
Oh.
In a Sunday, I think I'd more object to that than Trump using social media.
Yeah.
In a Sunday post on X, Republican Representative Lisa McClain of Michigan shared several photos of Crockett with a private police escort as she waited to board a plane at the airport. McClain accused her Democratic colleague of cutting the line ahead of other passengers, including disabled people. Spotted, she wrote, Jasmine Crockett with the taxpayer-funded police escort, cutting everyone in line, even making disabled people wait. Nothing to see here, just the next leader of the Democrats abusing her power. Crockett has not yet responded to the allegations. McClain's accusation against Crockett comes after Politico reported last Thursday that Crockett has been pitching herself for the top Democratic spot on the House Oversight Committee to fellow party members, sending text messages, emails, and hosting conversations on the House floor. Though the space has not yet been left vacant, Democratic Representative Jerry Connolly has planned to step aside as he battles a recurrence of cancer, per the report. Crockett has told other lawmakers that she's made for the moment. The people said in apparent reference to the desire among Democratic voters for a more forceful resistance to President Donald Trump, because it hasn't been forceful enough.
Yeah.
To impeachments, lawfare.
Now they really mean it. The whole Russian hoax thing. Well, we mean it now. Give me a break.
You know, it's like I said, it's David Hogg said it. It's weird saying Hogg instead of Hogue, that we've called him for years, but apparently.
Look, we're just repeating what we hear some liberals calling him.
And I thought it just had to do with Boss Hogg.
Yeah.
You know, so they just decided, okay, he's the boss, call him Hogg. I always thought it was Hogue. But
yeah. Now, if we said pig face, that'd be going too far. So we're not going to call him pig face.
Yes, exactly. Or
it would be wrong.
Or pig vomit.
Exactly.
But as he said, the message is the what they believe is fine. They just need new people. They need a new messenger. They need a bunch of fresh-faced new messengers out there, highly intellectual messengers like Jasmine Crockett.
Yeah.
People whose intelligence goes way beyond that of the normal man or woman. Super Crockett. And she's a complete idiot. I mean, seriously. I agree with, I think Trump said her IQ is 0. Something like that.
That's giving her a lot of credit.
We fully agree. Seriously, Democrats, this is what you're looking for?
Yeah, Democrats who live in Gary's district.
Yeah. And just so people know, the district already existed. I forgot what it was. They added my precinct onto it, and then I think that's when it became the 30th a couple of years ago.
Right.
But it was already a Democrat. They just went to my precinct, which made it even more Democrat, even though my precinct is not as Democratic, not as Democrat as the rest of the precincts.
Well, remember when Howard Schultz of Starbucks said you should know your neighbors, you should get out, and basically his point is you should know how many people of other ethnic backgrounds live in your neighborhood, which we found to be creepy.
Pretty racist.
Yeah.
Because
that sounds like you're counting people of color. That's really creepy. But we'll take from that, you should know your people in your district. Gary? You should start that venture as you're out exercising in your neighborhood and your district. Knock on the door. Did you vote for Jasmine Crockett? Yes, I did, Gary. Second question. What the hell's wrong with you?
What do they call that? Remember, you used to move into an area and then there were people that would come over to your house and greet you? There was like an official thing that existed.
I don't know.
It's like in the seven.
House
Like in the
warming party?
no, like in the
Calling
70s.
the cops? I don't know if the cops ever
What I
greeted
think
me.
it was more like a Chamber of Commerce thing where they
Oh,
get people
okay.
that
Yeah.
were throwing a bunch of stuff and show up at your door,
Yeah.
like welcome wagon or something it was called.
Oh, okay.
And they would show up and welcome to the neighborhood, and then a bunch of gifts from sponsors. It was actually more of a commercial venture to get you to shop at their places.
I didn't know
think it
they
was
actually
welcome.
did that.
Yeah,
Really?
that goes back to like the 70s. I think
Wow.
it was the 70s. Yeah.
Well, I always lived in the get off my lawn neighborhoods. Well, I often lived on base, actually, growing up as a kid, so maybe that explains it. Have people in uniform show up to your door. Hey, welcome to the neighborhood, and we're watching you. Yeah. No, I never got the welcome wagon. I do have a couple of new neighbors that have moved in that I haven't met yet. I try and say hello. One right across the street my wife had met them, but as you mentioned during the day we're not out and about. Usually I'm not, and so they're coming and going during the day. They work day jobs, but a nice young couple, and I met them. They were coming out their door not too long ago, and I had not formally introduced myself. And
Yeah, here it is. I just went to see AI. I put welcome wagon in. Welcome wagon. Welcome wagon can refer to two different things.
Okay.
A marketing company that reaches out to new homeowners with local business offers, or a folk indie pop band.
Oh, okay.
Welcome Wagon is a marketing service that sends direct mail packages to new homeowners containing coupons, advertisements, and information about local businesses. I think at one point in the 70s, it's been around since 1928. And in the 70s, I think they had people actually walk to your... I remember the commercial of people walking to your door. Welcome Wagon. Let me see. Businesses can sign up with Welcome Wagon to have their marketing materials included in those packages. The company was founded in 1928 by Thomas Briggs, inspired by the welcome wagons that greeted westward travelers, according to Welcome Wagon.
All right.
Meanwhile, the band is a married couple, a pastor and his wife, who play gospel indie pop music.
Gospel indie pop.
Yes. So there you go.
Wow. Okay. There's a genre I've never heard of. I don't know what that even means. I don't know what that even means. All right.
All right. And more news. There's just a ton of news. Some Senate Democrats are reportedly being cautious about the possibility of failed 2024 presidential candidate, former Vice President Kamala Harris, running for the White House again in 2028. One Democrat senator who did not want to be identified said no when asked if Harris should try again, adding that American voters were heard in November and it was time for the former vice president to move on to other things, TheHill.com reported on Sunday.
All right. That could be anybody from Fetterman.
You see the story on Fetterman? Did Fox have it?
Which one?
That behind the scenes, they're worried about his mental state, Democrat sources say.
Oh, no. I saw that. In fact, I think it was a New York Times article. I don't know if Fox bounced off of that. And the reason I made note of that over the weekend, I did see it in the New York Times, that version, because I thought, oh, now the liberals are worried about his mental state.
I was saying the same thing. I went,
Yeah.
does this relate to the whole Biden thing?
Right.
Well, look, we can use this to our advantage. Fetterman's doing us no good. Let's go after him.
Yeah. I don't think I saved that one. No. I didn't save it.
It
But
didn't
yeah,
last
it's the first
long.
It's the first thing that I thought of, because there's also thought that, again, he might be a vote, one or two votes along with the GOP on certain issues.
Here it is. Top Democrat aides blow the whistle on his, oh, jeez. I went to the Daily Beast, and then it locked me out. But it says top Democratic aides blow whistle on his disturbing mental state. Former and current staffers describe John Fetterman's mood swing and isolation to New York Magazine.
All right, here's the headline from New York Times. Former Fetterman aide expressed concern to doctor about senator's mental health. And that was from the weekend. This posted Friday. The former chief of staff to Senator John Fetterman was so alarmed with his ex-boss's erratic behavior last year that he wrote a lengthy letter to his doctor warning that the senator was spiraling out of control and that his mental health issues could cost him his life. Quote, I'm worried that if John stays on his current trajectory, he won't be with us for much longer, end quote. Adam Jenelson, the former chief of staff, wrote on May 20th to a doctor who had treated Mr. Fetterman at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center.
This goes back a couple of years ago then.
Yeah.
What, 2023?
Would it be? Would it be that long ago?
It says here throughout 2023 into 2024, Fetterman was likewise exhibiting signs of growing dependence on social media, despite the doctors urging him to minimize screen time for the sake of his health. I think he's on essentially all day, said Eric Stern, a consultant who worked with Fetterman, adding that the politician was prone to constant doom scrolling.
Mm-hmm. Well, this says last year.
Okay, that could have been May of 2024.
Yeah. So.
But this seems to have just hit, but it didn't go anywhere.
I didn't see it anywhere else. In fact, I only made note of it because I thought, the liberal activists over there at the New York Times are now concerned about Fetterman's mental health.
Well, I thought the Democrats, my first thought, Democrats are concerned by what he's saying. Oh, you mean it makes sense? So you think as a Democrat, he's saying things that make more sense? So as a Democrat, you think something is wrong mentally with him now?
Yeah, I'd like to know specifically what was he saying? What is it that triggered this, if this actually happened? He does nothing but wear hoodies. The left is now concerned about him wearing hoodies.
Well, didn't they vote so he could wear the hoodie?
Exactly.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Why? Because our show is 5 hours long, and most people don't get a chance to listen to all 5 hours because we're on all the way through the night. A lot of people go to sleep. A lot of people wake up with us. But if you want to catch part of the show, especially when we instruct you that there's been a great portion of the show that might not be what we're currently talking about, we can reference you back to that one. But you can listen to all 5 hours on our Red Eye Radio app after the show is over. And for some reason you cannot get one of our great radio stations overnight, you can listen live because we stream live on the app also.
All 5 hours.
Yep.
And for those just joining us, you're not going to believe what happened in the first hour.
I'm looking at a boat with Pelosi and Adam Schiff going to Alcatraz.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.